Hey guys, Matt here, and the Battlefield 2042 beta is so fucking broken and it doesn't work and I don't like it, but God almighty, have you seen this game? Look at all the vehicles and the weather effects and holy fuck, it's amazing. But it's also terrible because look at the glitches and oh my god.
What the hell is happening?
So after 7 years, the Battlefield franchise is finally back in the modern day / near future setting. And this weekend was the first time people could get their hands on the game, including me. For the past 3 days, I've been trying to get this beta to run on a decent frame rate, and after nearly 30 hours I can say with complete certainty that unless you're willing to sell your kidney for a new graphics card, you will not get this fucker to run at a steady 60 FPS. To all the big YouTubers out there saying that the frame rate is pretty decent, yeah, no shit Sherlock, I live in a house that is cheaper than your PC. Meanwhile, us peasants here in the land of I would love to play this game on a decent frame rate, but I also need, well, you know, bread to not die. We just need to keep our fingers crossed and hope that when the actual game comes out, it's optimized a bit better for low-end PCs. Remember kids, when you go to canyourunit.com and it says minimum and recommended requirements, it actually says no you cannot and I don't know, maybe, sure, sometimes. So yeah, for me the beta is kind of a mess right now. But I don't want to focus too much on the performance issues and bugs that are present in the game, since it definitely is possible that this will be fixed in the actual release. Hell, it probably already is fixed, since the developer said that this build of the game is already a few months old, even though all those bugs and glitches do make for some entertaining gameplay footage.
Bye, have a great time!
But I really want to start off with the positives, because there's so much to love here. I think that I speak for a lot of people when I say that the real Battlefield experience is making a comeback in 2042. Not to say that Hardline, Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5 were bad games. Well, Battlefield 1 wasn't at least. But the last time we had this sheer size of all-out warfare was all the way back in 2014. The Battlefield 2042 beta lets you play on one map called Orbit. It's set in French Guiana on a launch site for space rockets. Sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes a tornado comes along, destroys everything and makes 128 players forget about the objectives all at the same time. But it looks goddamn impressive doing it. Whatever you say about the Battlefield franchise, you cannot disagree that these games look insanely good. I mean, I'm playing it on low right now, but it still looks really good. Orbit is one of the biggest maps in Battlefield history, which makes it great for those only in Battlefield moments. You want to take a ride in a tank? Do it. Use a grapple hook? Go ahead. Shoot a helicopter out of the sky? Sure. Plant explosives on a quad, drive off the highest building right on top of a helicopter, jump off just in time to be picked up by your friends in another helicopter? Well, I don't have footage of that, but it certainly is possible. Speaking of these moments, they wouldn't be possible without Battlefield's focus on vehicular combat. A lot of vehicles we still know from the other modern day Battlefields make their return, like the earlier mentioned main battle tanks, quad bikes and helicopters. But we also see jets, little bird helicopters, anti-air vehicles, a sort of buggy with a minigun and the newly introduced Osprey. More than enough variety for people who enjoy vehicle combat, sometimes a bit much for people who enjoy infantry combat. It's not an overstatement how huge this map actually is, and you'll find yourself out in the open pretty often. So unless you have a vehicle to drive from A to B, be prepared to run half a marathon every time you want to overtake an objective, only to realize the objective has already been taken by the time you arrive. Luckily, you can call in vehicles and your newly introduced robot dog at pretty much any time. So if you're really in need of a vehicle, you can just drop one right in front of you. The vehicles themselves are actually pretty overpowered at this point. I've seen more than enough people go on insane killing sprees with a tank, and if you're a good pilot, you can do some crazy things with the helicopters and jets in this game. Both ground and air vehicles handle pretty good, which is unfortunate because I would really like to blame anyone else but myself for the fact that I keep crashing my helicopter. Infantry combat and gunplay so far are really good as well. As I've said, the variety in guns is not that big in the beta, but every gun feels different and they're balanced really good in my opinion. Not one of the guns is much more powerful than another, so you don't see every player use the exact same weapon simply because that one is better. If the developers keep this balance even when the other weapons are introduced, then the game is in a very good place. In this game there is no longer a class system. This has been changed by a specialist system. So instead of playing as a medic for instance, you just play as... honestly I don't even know what their names are and I don't care about them and this whole system just fucking sucks. But more on that later. Each specialist does have its own special gadget and the gadgets are absolutely great. The grapple hook has been one of my favorites so far, since it makes gameplay much more varied and versatile. It made me think of the grapple hook in the Batman Arkham games, and that's never a bad thing. The healing pistol is very useful since you can heal yourself, heal others from a distance, and they really made me hate reviving in this game, so the pistol was very welcome. Things like the little spotting drone are just sort of there, I guess. I didn't really care for it that much, but it's nice to already have a lot of variety in gadgets. The biggest change in infantry combat is of course the in-game weapon customization. Developer DICE must have been playing Crysis 2 and said, yes, that! We want that because it looks cool and we're not going to check if it's actually useful, but fuck that, it looks amazing. The good thing I can say about this is that it's very useful to be able to switch attachments on the fly. When running past a very open area, I like a bigger scope on my weapon, but when I run into a building, I just want a red dot or iron sights. Even though it completely does away with any sort of pre-game preparation, it's pretty useful in those instances. Overall, the biggest compliment I can give this beta is that the ultimate sandbox feeling is back in Battlefield. Even though this beta only lets you play on one map with a limited amount of weapons, attachments, gadgets and vehicles, you can definitely see the potential and endless possibilities that the full game will have. Even though the map is huge, it never feels as if the map is empty, since there's always 128 players present. If there's not enough players to fill the match, the empty slots will get filled up with artificial intelligence. Now, am I a bit disappointed that a multi-million-dollar company like EA tries to sell me a $60 game that is supposedly a next-gen experience, yet the AI is complete f***ing garbage? No, I'm not a bit disappointed, I'm f***ing baffled. Honestly, just go and play Far Cry 2 right now if you want to see what the AI should look like in this game. That game is 13 years old and the AI is still incredibly impressive today. This AI is acting like you asked your blind grandmother to play the game for you, and honestly, even she could do a better job than this AI. Randomly standing still in the middle of open areas, running all over the place, not giving you any challenge whatsoever unless they gang up on you. This AI is definitely artificial, just not very intelligent. Which is a nice segue into everything I didn't necessarily like about the beta. Starting with what I think is the worst right now. Visibility. A big part of this problem comes from the earlier mentioned specialist system. At this point there are 4 specialists. They are however not bound to a certain class. Normally if you needed ammo you go and find the support class in your team. If you needed health you look for the medic, etc, etc, etc. So can you understand how fucking annoying it is that everyone in this game looks alike? And it's not just you and your team. The enemy team has exactly the same character models, but they just talk different. This dude right here is canonically American as far as I know. Yet if you play as him in the Russian team, he'll be talking fluent Russian. Let alone that you will always be confused between who's actually in the enemy team and who isn't. If we get faction-specific specialists in the final game, that whole problem would be solved already. But that still won't change the fact that I can't see who is who in my own team. Who can I go to for ammo? Who can heal me? If there's a tank, does anyone have explosives or launchers to their disposal? I don't know, because everyone looks alike and you don't know which class they are playing. Honestly, if you ask me, the whole specialist system feels like a cheap way to gain a lot of money from customization as soon as the game is released, instead of it actually having a beneficial gameplay purpose. The visibility problem I've been talking about is also present in your heads-up display. Call it nitpicky, but I just don't think this is a good HUD. When an objective is being taken, I don't need a huge blue or red bar on the top of my screen to tell me that. When I kill someone, I don't have to see that information on 3 different places on my screen. Why do the kill and the points that I get for this suddenly have to be shown on 2 separate places? Also, why is so much of the text on my screen in transparent white and therefore not easily readable? Why use that same unclear text to indicate where someone's loadout is or where someone should be revived? Why not just go back to the old revive system where you don't accidentally pick up someone's loadout when you try to revive them? Why isn't it indicated anywhere that someone threw a grenade at me? It's all these things combined that result in you doing things you didn't intend to do. So far, I've heard a lot of positive things about the in-game weapon customization, and I get it. It looks cool and it gives you the opportunity to switch between playstyles on the fly. But personally, I'm not really a fan. I just really like preparing my guns before playing a match, based on the map you're going to play on. And this new system doesn't really add anything for me other than it just looks cool. There are not a lot of attachments to choose from at this point, but that doesn't really matter, it's still the beta. But I did encounter a pretty big problem here. In the customization menu you can choose between several ammo types, but this does mean your total amount of ammo will be split. Say you only use the standard magazine. You only have 1/3 of the ammo, since you will always have ammo for the other 2 magazines as well. This means you will run out of ammo all the time unless you have an ammo box with you all the time. This is of course possible, but that means you won't get to use any of the other gadgets like a rocket launcher or a repair tool. Choosing any of those gadgets will mean that you need to find a team member with ammo, but yet again, where are you going to find the right person who actually has ammo? Can you see where this is going? Can you see how stupid the decision is in a team-based game like Battlefield to focus more and more on individual players and the new specialists instead of team or squad mechanics? It's all these things combined that make me feel that Battlefield is starting to strafe away from team-based gaming and working together and more to individual playstyles. Lastly, one of the coolest things is also one of the most disappointing things: the tornado. Staying with the trend in Battlefield games of huge set pieces changing the tide of the game or the setting of the map, in some games the weather can change so much that a tornado appears out of thin air. It doesn't happen every game, which is great, but when it does happen, it looks incredibly spectacular. Yet gameplay wise, it doesn't do anything useful in my opinion. For example, Battlefield 4 had Levolution, like the collapsing skyscraper in Siege of Shanghai. When destroying the building, that part of the map actually changed, making for a new sort of playstyle. Same goes for the rising water in a map like Flood Zone. You now have the ability to reach certain places with boats. In this game, the tornado is just sort of there. It doesn't change the playstyle of the map. It doesn't destroy half of the map, making a new sort of play area. It simply comes along and then goes away after a while. On top of that, half of the players in a match now see it as their life's mission to parachute into the tornado and stay there as long as possible, not paying any attention to the actual game anymore. Same can be said about the rocket taking off. It looks impressive, but it doesn't change a lot. You can almost stand next to it when it launches, and after the dust settles, you just go on playing the match in the same way as before. We're long past the over-the-top destruction of Bad Company 2, but just adding these sort of set pieces for the wow factor instead of actually having a purpose, it feels kind of unnecessary. Let's hope that when the full game comes out, maybe the other maps will have more destructibility or different huge map-changing events. In conclusion, this beta is an incredibly impressive mess. I love the fact that for the first time since Battlefield 4, the all-out warfare element of Battlefield is finally making a glorious return. Gameplay is fun with a lot of variety in weapons, vehicles and gadgets, and as always the game looks amazing. Being able to play in such a huge map with 128 players is just one of the reasons why I love this franchise. On the other hand, I'm not a fan of some of the new features. The specialist system is not that good, making it difficult to see who's who, and is in my opinion a step back from the class system we are used to. The in-game weapon customization is a nice little addition, but also feels like something that isn't really necessary. Same can be said about the tornado. It looks amazing and makes for hilarious gameplay. But it also distracts from the actual game and doesn't change anything to the map or the playstyle. Overall, the beta was very enjoyable, and as soon as the developers patch out all the bugs, glitches and performance issues, which were pretty game-breaking for me right now, I think this could become the best Battlefield we've had in years. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next video. If you'd like to see more of my videos, or if you'd like to see more Battlefield related content, please keep an eye out for my channel in the upcoming weeks. I'll definitely be talking about Battlefield 2042 when the actual game comes out. And of course, if you've played the beta yourself, let me know in the comments what you thought about it, and if you agree or disagree with me about certain things. But for now, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!